So F3 and F2 return once again, and this weekend coming, we find ourselves at the Hungarian just outside Budapest. Welcome back to episode 18 of Formula Talk. Today we are here to discuss both F3 and F2. My name is Tom. Sophia is still away, so we have yet another glorious guest on the podcast, and this week we have none other than Mr. George Howson. George, hello, sir.
Good evening, Tom, and thank you for the lovely introduction as always.
That's quite all right. Just before we get into this episode, we must thank our sponsor, BetOnline. So BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BLEAV, that is BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, we would love it if you could take 5 to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you're one of the 72% of people who are not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider helping us out with a like and a subscribe. Also, final bit of plugging, please make sure to follow our new socials with the handle @GridTalkUK. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, maybe TikTok. I wouldn't ask me, to be honest. I'm not popular enough for that. But yes, you can find us across all your social platforms with the handle @GridTalkUK. So, George, F3 and F2, we'll start with F3, work our way up the proverbial food chain. This week, they're back at Hungary after a pretty exciting weekend at Silverstone weekend before last. How do you think F3 is going to get on this weekend? Let's hear some thoughts.
Well, if Silverstone's anything to go by, it's going to be an interesting occasion for sure. I mean, Hungary is not an easy track. It's one of the more difficult ones, I'd say. It's a very technical track. A lot of the inexperienced drivers in the field are they're gonna struggle relative to the more experienced, the more talented guys, quite frankly. It should be interesting for sure. And it's a track that's really, really hard to overtake around as well. And especially for the guys further down the field, when there's nothing to lose, they're just going to go for it. So I'm looking forward to it. I love F3 because there's 30 cars on the grid, which is just a huge amount of drivers competing on the same track. So it's only natural that in a field mainly made up of teenage boys that it's going to be a very exciting occasion.
Yeah. Do you think any of them are going to channel their inner Valtteri Bottas and just make an absolute send down into turn one? Yes, I am referring to 2021. Do you think we can expect to see some shenanigans from that this weekend? Or
I mean, anything's possible. I mean, on cold tires and that. I mean, I'm just going to look at the weather forecast now, see if it's potentially going to rain. It says it might rain on Saturday. Take that as you will. Something could happen for the sprint with that potentially, but Sunday, glorious sunshine as you'd expect at this time of the year in Hungary. I mean, you never know. I mean, to be fair though, even if the conditions are not the best, I think the F3 field, for the most part, did a very good job of kind of handling that at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago. It was really, really tricky conditions for at least the feature race. I think the sprint race potentially too. I can't remember off the top of my head. I was there. You think I'd remember, but I didn't. But there was definitely some tricky conditions for them to kind of get a hold of, and obviously the track is a lot lower speed than Silverstone, so we could see some of the same drivers like Ollie Goff and Fornaroli doing particularly well this weekend, or it could be the more usual ones like Pepe Marti, Gabriel Bortoletto, Paul Aaron, Gabriele Mini. Those guys are being up there this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like you said, it's definitely a track where experience counts. And, as I refer to quite often on our sister show, Grid Talk, go subscribe. They call it Monaco without the walls. So, it's definitely more challenging, it's, especially that middle sector, sort of turn after turn, and it's got quite high curbs as well. So it's definitely going to provide a challenge. But you provided quite a nice segue, actually. Let's just have a look at some predictions, shall we, for F3 for Budapest. So I want to hear your pole position, your sprints podium, your I was going to say qualifying podium. No, your feature race podium and a bold prediction.
Right. Okay. So pole position. I've just got a funny feeling about Pepe Marti. I think he's been driving really well, and there's been some Spanish drivers in the past, like Fernando Alonso in the F1, do very well around Hungary. So I'm going to go for him for pole position. And obviously, it gets reversed for the sprint race. I think, especially after last weekend, where he cut through the field no end after an awful qualifying, I'm going to tip Beganovic do well this weekend. I think had he not qualified so badly, I think he had an engine failure in qualifying that sent him to the back of the grid. Had that not happened, I think he definitely would have been in a shot of podiums in both races with the way he drove. So I'm gonna go for him. I'm gonna go for him to win the sprint race. Let's have a look at the grid. Let's put Colapinto in second because he did win the sprint last time out in Silverstone. And third, let's go Paul Aaron. And then for the feature race, let's go with a more conventional one. Lights the flag for Pepe Marti after qualifying on pole. Let's say Mini in second. And let's throw Brit in there. Let's chuck, after an awful home weekend, I'm going to chuck Sacco Sylvan in there. The third place on the podium. Bold prediction, aside from some of the predictions that I've given, I don't know. See, I'll look down here. He's been due a good result for a while. I've not predicted him to be on podium, so I'll predict him just to be off of it. I'm going to go for Seb Montoya for a top 5 at some point in the weekend, just because he's been doing some incredible qualifying sessions. He could have won one of the races around Silverstone had things not happened like they did. So yeah, I'm going to go for him for a top 5. Partly just because I used to love his dad when he was racing in F1. I do want to see Seb Montoya do that for a bit of nostalgia. So yeah, I'll go for him for a top 5.
Okay, that would certainly make for a very exciting weekend if Montoya did get in the top 5, I should say. I do have some predictions from Sophia as well. She has sent me a long list of notes, even though she is halfway across the world. She's still here with us in spirit. So apologies for looking down as well, if anybody is actually watching this. So Sophia for F3, she has said Gregoire Saucy on pole, which is a interesting shout. And that is not her pole prediction either. So okay, her sprint podium is going to be Franco Colapinto P1, second Leo Fornaroli, and third she has said Zach O'Sullivan. So I know
something in that.
I know. Joe, as I read, I thought, yeah, okay. And then for the feature race, she has said Gabriel Mini to win, Gabby Bortoletto to come second, and she said Dino is gonna come third. So no podium for our pole sister Gregoire Saucy, which is interesting. And her bold prediction, which will lead me on to a little bit of news, she said new drivers get points.
Ooh, I was thinking that for the bold prediction, I was, but she's actually gone for it. Fair play.
And she has this knack of getting the predictions bang on as well.
It's almost like she knows what she's talking about or something.
I know, yeah. Well, mate, it's not like I do, seeing as I miss having her here because she balances out the show. Yeah, so we do have a little bit of news as well about F3. So for the rounds in both Spa, not Spa, that's wishful thinking. We're not there yet. For both the rounds in Spielberg and Silverstone, PHM Racing by Charouz, they had Mackenzie Cresswell, the young British driver, in, who was standing in for 2 races. Now, we didn't know if it was going to be permanent or if it's going to be temporary. It is indeed temporary. Or it was temporary, I should say, as PHM Racing by Charouz, or just Charouz, as a lot of us know them, they have announced that Woo Young Shin is going to be racing for them for the rest of the season. Now, thankfully, he goes by the name Mike. So if you hear us refer to him as Mike, that's not me being a bit thick. That is genuinely what he apparently likes to go by. So George, just want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think it's? I mean, I say, do you think it's a good appointment? We don't really know much about him, but Giroud's haven't had the best of seasons. Do you think maybe this sort of like somewhat financed backing may help them? I'm trying to be as delicate with this as I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? I mean, we know it's expensive to go racing, even at the level of Formula 3. I mean, I'm just looking up some of the guys' results on here. He's competed in Formula Regional Middle East. He's competed in GB3 Championship, the F4 British Championship. He's done all right in all of them. He's not exactly blown the competition out of the water. But in terms of representation, I think it's great because he's Korean. And the only other Korean guy that I can think of in motorsport is Jack Aitken, and he's only half Korean. I believe he still competes under the British flag. So it's good to get someone who's outright Korean and competing with a Korean flag in motorsport. I wish him all the best with that. I do like to see that the kind of variety of nationalities in the junior series. He's only 18. He's really young. He can improve a lot. But like we said, it's going to be difficult for him because he's coming into Formula 3 season almost at the end of the season. Everybody else has got like 6-7 rounds under the belt already. So it's going to be quite difficult for him. But he's just going to do it as a learning experience with a view to potentially driving for the next season as well if he impresses.
Yeah, and that is a good point. Because we've had, but how many rounds have we had? We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to this would have been round 8, but I'm discounting it because obviously it was cancelled. So Budapest is going to be round 7, and bear in mind after Budapest we have 2 rounds left. We have Spa the following weekend. We then have about a month off, and then we're at Monza, and that's it. So yeah, I agree with you. I do suspect it's sort of like financially motivated. However, great to see more representation from across the globe. I think you made a very, very good point there. And and when you said I can only think of another driver who's Korean, or and then you said Jack Aitken, I went, you made a good point because I couldn't think of anybody. So yeah, I think it is going to be good for the sport. However, I do wonder if it's sort of just getting his feet, and maybe it's just sort of Giroud's testing him out for next year to see how he gets on. Because the calendar is going to remain largely the same. Let's be fair. So so it's it's going to be an interesting one. But just looking up, I was going to say up the grid, up the series chain. Let's have a look at F2. So if you want drivers who are slightly more well behaved, not much, let's have a chat about F2. So obviously last week, not last week, weekend before, a good a very, very good weekend at Silverstone. Really, really exciting. This weekend, we see obviously the series coming back. Last year we had Jack Doohan winning the sprint race, and then Théo Pourchaire winning the feature race. Do you think we can expect to see something similar this year, or do you think do you think we're going to have new winners in one or maybe even both of the races? But I don't want predictions. Just this is topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially going to happen. I mean, Théo Pourchaire, second in the championship, having a great season. I really do like him. Seems like a genuinely nice guy as well from very limited interactions I've had with him. So, I wish him all the best with that. And I think he's quite close to Fred Vesti. I mean, it does seem, I'm just going to get the championship up here. It does seem like it's a 3-horse race. I mean, we've got more rounds than F3. We do have 5 rounds in total, including Budapest to go. So we've got Zandvoort and Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi as well to come, as well as Hungary, Spa and Monza as well. So there's a bit more to go with the F2. There's more to kind of play for. But it does seem like it's a 3-horse race between Vesti and Pourchaire and Ayumu Iwasa as well. And Pourchaire is going to be desperate to do well this weekend. He's been a very, very consistent driver this season. He's only had 1 win, but a lot of podiums, a lot of strong points finishes, and that's what's really got him up there in the standings. Whereas Vesti and Iwasa, they've had multiple wins and perhaps been a little bit less consistent. Not always the fault, of course. Their reliability, the cars have not helped either at times. So we could well see a repeat of drivers who won last year winning this year. I mean, I'd say I'm going to get into my predictions in particular, but I just want to say that Behrman and Martins, both rookies this season, absolutely lighting the place up. They have been fantastic, especially for drivers of their age as well. I think Behrman's only 18. It's ridiculous what they're doing. I mean, Behrman at times did not exactly cover himself for glory last weekend at Silverstone, but yeah, there's some serious talent there. Those two are some of the favourites, definitely. And just like F3, F2 is a spec series, so anybody really can challenge. Anybody on their day can be up there. I mean, you look at the results of the season, and pretty much everybody down to Hajar, who is 16th in the standings, has a podium or more. I mean, that's a kind of variety that you don't really get in many series. It's really good to see. So yeah, I'm just like F3. I'm expecting a very exciting weekend this weekend for the F2.
Oh yeah, definitely. I will confess sometimes I don't always wake up in time for the F3 because they start rather early. But the F2, which I am usually around and about for, is very, very exciting. I certainly, for one, I'm really looking forward to seeing them go around. You brought up a good point actually, and I was going to sort of just go into this a bit more. So, it is a 3-horse race for the championship, but it's realistically it's between Fred Vesti and Theo Pourchaire. Do you think Pourchaire can do enough this season to win it? Do you think this is his kind of like make or break season, because he missed out last year and it ultimately slipped away from him after Drugovich won? Do you think Pourchaire's got it in him to win the season? And if he does, what's he going to do next year?
Yeah, well, I think he's got it in him, definitely. And the thing about Pourchaire is, even though he's been in F2 for, I think this is his 3rd season, he's only 19 years old. He's still ridiculously young. So it's not a make or break thing for him. It could be his last season in F2, no matter what, potentially. If he finishes second in the standings, then Sauber, because it will be Sauber next year, and he's part of the Sauber Academy technically. Sauber will probably want to move him on to, well, they might actually bring him into the F1 team, but if not, then they'll probably send him out to Super Formula or something like that. That seems like the kind of route that experienced F2 drivers kind of go down, because at that point you'd think, what is there really to gain? Yeah, okay, even if he's not won the title, he's pretty much up there, and he's still really young, and he's still bloody quick and consistent as well. That's the thing with Pourchaire. Like I say, he doesn't win very often, but he's very, very consistent, and that's probably more important than anything for a team that's down near the bottom of the grid, and obviously subject to the cost cap, as every other team in F1 is. Excuse me. And for next year, I mean, you've got Guan Yu Zhou and you've got Valtteri Bottas in that Alfa Romeo seat, which will become Sauber for next year because they're losing that branding. Eventually, obviously, they become Audi. What kind of situation they end up in at that point, I don't know with the drivers. That's the way it's off. That's 2026, I think. So there's a bit of time with that. Pourchaire is going to be eligible for a super license if he's already not got one. He's going to be raring to get in a Formula One car. Does he go into the Sauber? Is there room for him there? Are Sauber going to get rid of Valtteri Bottas? I don't know. I'd be very tempted to if I was them. And I do like Bottas. I think he's a nice guy, but he's just not shown himself to be the level of driver that he was at Mercedes, a guy that would on occasion challenge Hamilton, regularly get podiums. Yes, best car on the grid, of course. But as we've seen from Sergio Perez this year, you can have the best car on the grid, but you still need to be a bloody good driver to get up there in the top 3 and win the occasional race. So if I was Sauber, if I was whoever the team principal of Sauber, I think Seidel's gone there or going there. If I was Seidel, I'd say, well, I don't really want Bottas. He's not going to get any better. This Pourchaire kid will get better. He's good right now. But then you're left in the situation where you've got Zhou and Pourchaire in the F1 team. And with the greatest respect to Zhou, I think he's a solid driver. I don't really see him improving a hell of a lot. Could be proven wrong on that, of course. Happy to be. But a team leader, I don't know. I don't really see that in him. Not yet. So then you've got Porsche and Zhou, and that's an inexperienced lineup. Lineup probably get better, but still, it's a tricky situation that Sauber find themselves in. But if it's not Sauber, then where does he go? Nowhere, probably to be a reserve driver at Sauber. So I think it's Sauber or bust for him, really, to be honest. And I think it's very possible that he doesn't make his way into F1 next year, even if he wins the championship. We have seen this before. Champions of F2 don't always go into F1, especially straight away.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's even if he does find himself, sort of in a test and reserve driver or a test and reserve role, I should say. All I say is Sauber, make sure your contracts are watertight because you don't want to lose into McLaren. We joke about it. It's like, if a driver sits in a test and reserve role for 2-3 years after winning F2, so this is what I kind of fear about Drugovich, because without getting into the F1, because that's for the sister show, he's not going to be in a C, I don't think. You can't see where he's going to go. Well, we know we'd like him to go, but it's not going to happen. And it's just like, I know the Porsche will. He's still incredibly young. He's only I think he's 19, and you said
he's 19 years old. Yeah,
So he's he's got obviously got a big career ahead of him, but he's not gonna. There's only so much that he's going to learn, like being a test and reserve driver, and doing like however many practice sessions. 6 practice sessions in a season? There's only so much he's going to learn, and he will need to be into a full-time seat, because otherwise he's going to. I'm not saying he's going to lose it, but it's that sort of like sharpness that sometimes you see that may dwindle, and nobody wants to see that.
Yeah,
that's my view in it anyway. For all that it's worth. No, let's just have a quick look at some predictions. I've got Sophia's here as well, so I'll read this out in a moment. But George, give me some predictions for F2 Budapest this weekend.
Oh, well, let's be exciting. Let's go with what the weather forecast said and say that it's going to rain on Saturday. So, but before that, obviously we've got qualifying. I'm going to go for Porsche for pole. He's not had many. I think he's only had one this season looking at the results. But I'm going to go with him just because he seems quite good around Hungary and he needs a good result here, obviously. So I'll go with him for pole. Sprint race, I'll say if it's wet because he was absolutely untouchable at Silverstone. I'm going to go for Fred Vesti to win the sprint race. It was wet during that as well for Silverstone 2 weeks ago. Let's put Behrman in second. Let's chuck Jack Doohan in third, because he's a guy that's been doing some monster drives recently. Like I was saying about Bogdanovic and F3 doing some ridiculous drives. Doohan was absolutely in the wars in both races at Silverstone. He was excellent. And then for the feature race, let's say Porsche to win that from pole again. It's pretty calm around Hungary. It's hard to pass. Put Wasser in second. I don't think he'll have a particularly great weekend, but he'll get second place in the feature. The third, I'm gonna chuck Jack Doohan in again. I'm gonna go for a double podium for him. I don't know what I'm basing that on, but he just seems like a man that is fired up right now, with the help of Ollie Behrman along the way. So
that is that would be a good weekend for Jack Doohan, and I think he needs it. I'd like to see him to get at least one podium, but really I'd like to see a double podium. He's I think he'd need that. But I've got Sophia's here, so again, apologies for looking down. So on pole, she has got Fred Vesti, and then her podium for the sprint, she has said Victor Martins to win, Clement Novalak for second, and Iwasa for third. And then in the feature race, she has said Pocher to win. Of course, she says same earlier only for P2. And then honestly, that is a running joke by this point. And yes, Soph, I know he's from Barbados and you're from Bermuda. I got it right.
Island support.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, islands unite. And then she said P3 with the feature race is going to be Ollie Behrman. But her bold prediction, she said the standings are going to change after the race and Fred Vesey won't be on top. Now, she didn't say who, but I think it's safe to say, given she said Pocher to win and Vesey not on any of the podiums, I think she's saying Pocher to lead the championship. So I'm going to say that her bold prediction is Pocher to lead the championship. I think she's trying to be too vague so she can scab an extra point. I know your game, Richmond. So yeah, that would I think if that does happen this weekend, then that's good for that'd be really good for Pocher going into the summer break.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We've still got Spa to go. We've still got Spa to go before the summer break, and Tom was Tom couldn't believe that then, but that's only because Spa has been after the summer break for as long as I can remember, but this year it's before it for some reason.
I know it feels so wrong.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, it doesn't feel right. It
feels so wrong. It should always be Spa, and then the first week of September should be Monza, and then we should have Zandvoort, or Zandvoort should be like before Hungary or after Hungary or something. But also for me, Hungary is either Hungary or Germany. When we have Germany, I still miss Hockenheim. Those two is, in my head, they're traditionally the last race before the summer shutdown. So it
used to be.
Yeah, it feels odd with Spa, but it's more racing before the break, so I'm not going to complain. He says, having just moaned for 2 minutes. But yeah, some things never change, eh? So that is our preview of Formula 3 and Formula 2, F3 and F2 for the Hungarian Grand Prix. So George, tell us a bit more about yourself. What do you do? Where can we find you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm the guy that's behind the Football Chronicle. You can search up footballchronicle.com. That's FUTBOL chronicle.com, part of the F1 Chronicle group of websites. I usually do a weekly opinion piece on there, but it's the off season at the moment. However, it's coming back soon, so I will be producing those opinion pieces on everything in the world of football. I'm sure that the many transfer dealings and one country in particular buying everybody to talk about, if nothing else. And yeah, obviously, if you want to hear more from me, you can obviously go on to F1 Chronicle. There's some of my articles on there, and obviously, I do host this show sometimes. Sometimes I'm more on the panel these days. I enjoy it, to be honest with you, less effort. So hats off to you, Tom. Doing a great job hosting as always. And yeah, thanks for having us on.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of talking in work today, so I'm looking forward to going home and saying nothing. But yes, Formula Talk is available on YouTube, where one day we will be doing a live episode, but today is not that day. You can also find us on Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Casts. Just search for Formula Talk for our back catalogue of shows, and you can also find our sister show Grid Talk, where we discuss all things F1. Please consider supporting the channel on Patreon so we can get mics, lights, and better recording equipment. Also, make sure you're subscribed so you're the first to know when each new episode is released. We'll be back next week to review the Hungarian Grand Prix. I'm going to have another guest next weekend because Sophia won't be back. Until then, thank you so much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast presented by Bet Online, and goodbye.